All right, Amy, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the cystic. I'm going to mess this up. Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I've had like major anxiety all day because I know I'm going to call it CF going forward.
Absolutely. CF, okay. CFF, totally appropriate. Actually, I really didn't know a lot about CF, and a recruiter had reached out to me saying, we have this opportunity for an executive director in the Central New York chapter. Do you know of anyone who's interested? And I didn't, but I started digging in a little bit, and I'm like, this is a phenomenal organization. Like, I need to work for them. And as I, went through the interview process and just met more people and learned about the strategy, the foundation has, I was like, I have to work there. And that was 10 years ago.
Okay. What stood out? I'm curious.
Because they're really strategic. So much has changed in the last, 15 years around the disease and the treatments that they recognize like this was very much a pediatric disease. And because of all the treatments and drugs that the foundation funds, it was becoming an adult disease. So they realized we need to take a step back and really focus on what the future is going to look like for us. So just that strategic piece and that forward thinking was really, really attractive to me.
So what is cystic fibrosis?
So it is a genetic disease, and it causes the body to produce a thick, sticky mucus, and it impacts the lungs, the pancreas, digestive system, a whole bunch of other organs. But in the lungs, it causes the body to trap bacteria, viruses, so that causes inflammation, that causes infection, and over time it decreases lung function and ultimately ends in respiratory failure. But it really impacts every system of the body, and it impacts every person differently.
So how do you treat it?
We're very lucky because right now there are a number of different treatments. So as I said, it impacts people differently, but just so I'm painting with a very very broad brush here. Generally, people will wear a vest. It looks almost like a life preserver, and it shakes. So it shakes the mucus out of their lungs. So they'll do this generally in the morning and at night. And while they're doing that, they may do all sorts of different inhaled treatments, whether it's inhaled antibiotics, inhaled hypertonic saline. Because of the mucus in the pancreas, a lot of times it impacts the way that people digest food. So they'll have to take enzymes before they have anything to eat. We have a lot of drugs now that help the underlying protein that causes CF actually function. So they may need to take those drugs in the morning at night. But in general, once again, broad brush, people with CF will take dozens and dozens of pills during the day. And that's when they're healthy. When they're sick, it could require IV antibiotics, more of the breathing treatments, things like that.
So what's your role with the organization?
Yep. So I'm the executive director of the Central New York chapter and also the area director for upstate New York. And the chapter's roles are primarily fundraising and relationship building. So we are very much still a grassroots organization. We raise funds through special events, through our annual fund campaign. So our staff in the chapters, along with all of our volunteers, will do different events like walks or tasting events, golf events, things like that. We have an extreme hike that's pretty cool. So the chapters really are working on developing relationships with the volunteers, with the community, with our sponsors, and also organizing the events.
So let's talk about early detection and how you test for cystic fibrosis.
Yes. So newborn screening is where they find cystic fibrosis. And the foundation lobbied for newborn screening to be a part of, every newborn's test across the country. It varies state by state. So every newborn's tested. There's about 1,700 different mutations that cause CF. So some states test for hundreds of those mutations. Some states only test for one. So we've gotten really, really good at early detection, but there's still a lot that fall through the cracks. So, obviously the earlier that we can start treating a baby, a person, the better the outcomes are, because now the treatments are really effective in keeping down the larger lung issues.
So everyone that has this knows it. Is that accurate?
Let's say everyone born today in general knows it. There are a lot of late diagnosis. We have some people who are diagnosed in their 50s, in their teens, and they growing up were just like, oh, you have chronic bronchitis, you have asthma, you have allergies, you have all these things, because a lot of people don't know that they have CF in their families. It's a genetic disorder. So in order for a child to be born with it, both parents have to carry the defective gene. And then there's a 25% chance of that child having CF. And there's a chance that they would be a carrier if they don't have the disease.
So that's interesting. So if someone has it, that probably creeps into your mind when you're looking at procreating, right? If
Yeah.
the other person, like, because like I said, 25% chance.
Yeah.
But with treatment, it's very manageable.
Yes, now it is. And like I said, I mean, so the foundation started in 1955. And when it started, kids with the disease were expected to live just a couple years. So it was started by a group of parents. They were told, like, take your child home, love them, you don't have very much time. And they said, not acceptable. So they got together and, started the whole grassroots thing called Friends, Family, Civic Organizations, and just started raising money. And this is where we've gotten today. And now someone with CF, a child born today, will live into their 60s. And that's just increasing because of the treatments that are available.
How many people, ballpark, or maybe you know the answer, like how many people does this impact?
40,000 in the U.S.
Okay.
Plus or minus.
And then do you know locally?
Locally, we have a care center in the 15 counties that we cover. The care center at Upstate Hospital basically serves kind of our same footprint. So they have over 250 people that go to that center. And then there's some people who may go to different centers or who may not, have their care there, but for the most part, 250.
And not to get political, but to ask the question, like, is this typically covered by insurance?
Insurance is
vary.
tricky.
Yeah.
Not to get political, but about 50% of kids with CF receive Medicaid for part or all of their coverage, and about 30% of adults with the disease. And some of the drugs are real expensive. We have the one drug that really has made a tremendous difference in people's lives. It's called Trikafta, and that's about $300,000 a year. So insurance coverage is huge, and just the different medications that people take. I mean, it's coverage is just so crucial. So that's actually one of the things that the foundation does is we advocate really, really heavily for access to coverage to make sure people have the care and the access that they need.
I struggle with this deeply. We're not going down this rabbit hole, but same thing with insulin for diabetics, right?
Yes.
Like how drug companies are allowed to charge that much for something that people need to live.
Absolutely.
Again, not going down the rabbit hole.
Well, and honestly, diabetes that's one of the kind of comorbidities of CF. CF-related diabetes is a big, big issue in a lot of adults with the disease. So very, that issue is near and dear to our hearts too.
Yeah.
So let's go in a positive direction.
Yes.
Some great personal stories from the CF community or things that you've done or happy things.
Oh my gosh, so many good things. So many good things. I mean, really, this is one disease where people can see the impact of their fundraising. So, the dollars that are raised goes to treatment, goes to care, and just to be able to see in like the past 10 years, so in 2019 is when, this big drug came out and people's lives have changed. We have individuals who are on the lung transplant list who started taking this drug and they're off the transplant list. Wow. They're exercising, they're walking, they're, living just a normal life, without having the disease really impacting them severely. So it's so cool. Like I get goosebumps when I talk about it, just to hear about like all the progress and that, a lot of kids are just living normal lives. They're doing their thing and they don't have to, give CF really a second thought. So it's really, really positive. It's a great time to have the disease, which sounds weird, but
right. But if you're going to have it, this is a good time to be alive, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And you are definitely the right person for this job. You talk about having goosebumps, like you light up and like you change when you start talking about the positives. So,
this community is like no other. I've worked for, other healthcare nonprofits, and this community is so passionate and just rallies around each other and is really in it until the end. I mean, our mission is to cure CF, not just to have treatments for everyone. So I've never seen a community as caring and as family oriented and as just in it as this one.
So let's talk about that. Another rabbit hole, but there's so much with the Heart Association and the Cancer Association where it's like it seems like so much of it just goes to people that already have it, right, or are impacted by it. Not like what are we doing to actually fix it or get rid of it. Prevent. What is your breakdown with how much goes towards research to just end this, right, versus help people who are already impacted?
It's a little tricky because we fund the care center. We have a huge care center network across the country. We fund programs too. So we have, we'd mentioned insurance, like healthcare is hard to navigate. There's a lot of other things that go along with having CF. So we have patient assistance programs. Obviously research is a real big we're going to find the cure. And while we're at it, we're trying to find different treatments for different, infections and GI issues and things like that along the way. So it varies, but we are projected to spend over $2 billion on research in the next 5 years. So, obviously that's nationwide, but research is still is a large chunk of what we raise.
So let's talk about some of the upcoming events that you have, the Great Strides Walk and Savoring Salt City.
Yeah. So Great Strides, we have 3 Great Strides Walks. So our walk here in Mohawk Valley is coming up on May 17th, and that's at Delta Lake. Super, super fun, great family walk. We've got activities and a balloon twister and a DJ and, food. So, we would love it if people came out and joined us. That's May 17th. It starts registrations at 9 a.m. and the walk kicks off at 10. And then we also have walks in Syracuse on May 18th and then Ogdensburg on May 31st. And May is CF Awareness Month. And then our Savoring the Salt City event is in October, and that's super fun. It's a tasting event. So all sorts of different restaurants, wineries, breweries, bringing out their specialties. So, people can just taste. We have a great silent auction. We have, fun entertainment, things like that. So it's a great Thursday night out.
Cool. And where do people get more information about that?
Yep. They can go to cff.org/Central New York.
Awesome. All right. So you said the CNY is home.
Yes.
And you love how we all come together.
Yes.
And can you share a moment where you've felt that, like something that jumps out to you as far as you've done a lot with community? Any special moment that stands out to you with community related?
Yeah, I think, kind of going back to our Great Strides walks, when I first started, those were some of the first events that I had gotten into, and just really, we had hundreds of people attend, and just kind of taking a step back and looking out at everyone just having a great time and loving the fact that we are all here for the same cause. Like, this is a super rare disease. This isn't cancer or heart. And so just to see that kind of turnout for this community, and everyone was there we call them our fighters, our people with CF. So everyone was there really to celebrate the CF fighters. Was so cool.
And community is a huge part. Like, we as Central New Yorkers in these small communities definitely get behind foundations like this, and these causes, because we need to help each other. So I think you working in Central New York, and talk about the area that you cover.
So we cover 15 counties in the center of the state. So north to St. Lawrence, south to Broome, and then Herkimer to Cayuga. So we do have a large area to cover, and we have a small staff, so we rely heavily on volunteers, and we just have some phenomenal volunteers that are in all those communities throughout our area.
How many people are on the team?
There's 3 of us in the Central New York office.
Covering 15
That's crazy.
counties.
Yeah, and that's why we lean heavily on volunteers. We have committees for events. We have a phenomenal board. We have we could not do it just as chapter staff.
So people need to volunteer.
Yes, we would love that. We would love that. I'm going to put my plug in that we have something for everyone. If you would just want to come out for the event day and help with, registration or setup, that's great. If you want to help plan our events and get sponsors and people there, that's great. We have a great advocacy team if you're interested in advocacy. There's really something for everyone.
Even kids, because on National Honor Society, they are required to have so many service hours. And it was too funny. Yesterday, we were sitting down with our daughter, and she's having her 8th grade moving up ceremony. And they ask for 3 things that you do in school and then 3 things you do outside of school.
Oh, wow.
So this is a great way for kids to get service hours and volunteer and help out.
100%. We would love that, especially, with the walks coming up. There's so much that, kids can do to help.
For sure.
Yeah. And as someone who employs people, when I'm interviewing, I'm always interested in the things you're doing that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
That you don't get paid for.
And so,
sure.
Volunteering, obviously you want to be, do it for the right reasons, not because, you have to, but, it does matter. And I think maybe you can speak to it. I think sometimes people go in with one intention around volunteering, and then something happens to make them heart-centric, it grabs them emotionally.
Yeah, when I first started, it was very what we call inner circle. It was very, people had a direct CF connection. It was relatives, it was family. And, because we're a small community, that wasn't sustainable. So it's been really cool to see over the years how, volunteers and board members have gotten involved. They've come to an event and they've heard someone with CF speak, and it's just like hit them like a lightning bolt. Sure. And they're like, I have to get involved. I have to do something to help. So, a lot of times just hearing the stories is so inspirational, and hearing about the progress that we're making, that really inspires people to continue to stay involved.
Yeah. And a big part of this and what you do is awareness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Admittedly, I had no idea.
I had no idea
what
either.
CF was, or how it impacted people, or how many people it impacted. So I'm learning as we're having this conversation. So what is one key message or takeaway you'd like for our audience to leave today with?
That we're making so much progress, but we have so much longer to go till we get to the finish line. And so we really still need to continue to need the support, the volunteers, the donors. People within the community say, we've made so much progress, we can kind of take our foot off the gas. Right. And it's actually the opposite is true. So, just continuing to push forward.
Yeah. Let's talk about
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Because I would love to know, what inspires you guys to get involved in organizations, and what inspires you to stay involved?
It's hard because
that's
you
a
only
great
have so
question.
much time in your day. So you kind of have to pick and choose where you put your hours. And this is I had no idea that you were born with this and it was genetic. And so my question, you go ahead, you answer the question. No, go ahead, and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, it is. I'm very involved with our local Kiwanis Club because my passion is the youth, right? And specifically the youth in this community. And I talk a lot about you're most powerfully positioned to help the person you once were. And I look at the way I was, raised, which a great family, great community, but just I lacked self-confidence. We lacked money. We lacked a network of people. So I want to bring that to that group. I guess it's just where my heart is.
Yeah, I think with me teaching too for so many years, seeing kids that don't have.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because, we were talking about this week, there was a fundraising event, and admittedly, I didn't go because it's we work all day, and then it was 6:30 at night. It was a dinner, and I'm just exhausted, So to answer your question, what keeps us going, and it sounds corny, cliche, but it's true, is why you started, right? So why do you start anything? Because you're moved emotionally. It's where your heart is, where your head is, and it moves you to action because you care and you want to help, but then life happens and the logistics get difficult. So I guess what keeps me going is circling back around to, why'd you start this? What was important to you back then that made you do this? Get yourself back to that mindset to just with anything, right? Diet, exercise, it's to keep you motivated. It's hard. So, but there's so many, as you know.
Oh man,
right?
And there's amazing causes. They're all amazing causes.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I'm sure that's a big part of your job, right?
Yep.
Is to get people not only involved but keep them involved.
Yes, absolutely. So it's always just interesting to me to see what inspires others. Not necessarily to get involved with us, although we would love that, but just what keeps you involved with the organizations that are close to your heart.
And I think a big piece of this too, we talked about already, but how people can help is sharing this episode, right? Sharing your message, connecting with you on social. You've got events coming up, on May 17th and beyond. May is CF Awareness Month. Just the more people can, it takes 2 seconds. We're not everyone, but most people are on social more than we should be. So it takes 2 seconds to engage in the content, share the content, encourage others. So, I think sometimes we overthink what volunteerism and support is.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's great. You need people that are going to be commit hours, but you can simply share.
100%. It's spreading the word, because Kelly, like you said, we're so rare, and we're so. When they reached out to me for this position, I'm like, SNCF, that lung thing. I didn't know what it was, and so really the awareness is so huge.
Yeah.
And so, are you seeing numbers increasing or decreasing?
Increasing. So just a couple of years ago, they raised, so there used to be 30,000 people in the U.S. with CF. About 2 or 3 years ago, they raised that number to 40,000, and it's because, people were being born with the disease, but people were also passing away. And now, because of the treatments, people are living a lot longer. So that number is increasing, and, it's becoming, it used to be totally pediatric disease, and now there's actually more adults than kids who have the disease, which is amazing.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's working.
Yes.
Your treatments and it's working. So that's awesome.
What's the biggest struggle you're having right now? Where's your focus?
Money is always a struggle. It's just, and times are tough for a lot of people. So really just getting the money in and hitting our goals I think that's the biggest struggle.
Talk about CF Awareness Month. So what does that entail?
Yeah, so that's an opportunity. We've got a big social media presence, and that's an opportunity just to share facts and information, just basic info about the disease, trying to do things like this just to get, more kind of, community-facing information out there. So it's really an opportunity just to kind of shed the spotlight, in my mind, every month is CF Awareness Month, but really just to kind of put the focus on it a little bit more. Years
ago, our pediatrician said that, a success for me would just be doing annual checkups, like no sick, and so as funny as it sounds, is success for you being out of this job?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Yes. When I first started this, said, that's our, end goal. We want to be out of business. The reality is that there's so many people who have advanced lung disease that even when we have that one-time cure for everyone, there's still going to be a need for, that care. It's going to be another generation before we're kind of out of that. But yes, I would love to be, as much as I am so passionate about this, I would love to be out of a job because that means that, we've done it.
You did it. Yeah. Let's do some lighter rapid fire CNY focus questions.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got a lot of them.
Great. I love that.
So a lot of our guests talk about seasons and the fact that we see all 4 seasons in the area that we live. What is your favorite season?
Fall, 100%. Love, sweater weather, love getting out and the pumpkins, and the Halloween is my favorite holiday. So fall.
Yeah. We're coming off 6 months of winter. So I don't know if we have 4 seasons, but some are longer than others. All right. You are 15 counties, right? You talk about fall, you travel a lot. Where's a place that we should check out that we might not know about?
Ooh, that's a great question.
We're always looking for hidden gems.
Oh, there's so many good ones.
You can name as many as you want.
I mean, kind of all over the place. Like obviously, I love the Adirondacks. We have a super cool extreme hike that we do in the Adirondacks.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so it's a fundraising event and it's an endurance event. So we will train people to hike a high peak or multiple high peaks. And we kind of have an array of hikers. Some have never hiked before and some have done all 46 high peaks, but they keep coming back because it's so cool. So it's a weekend event. People fundraise. They commit to raising $2,500. And we do a 3-month training program, and it culminates in the hike weekend where I shouldn't pick favorite events because it's like your kids, you're not supposed to pick your favorite kid. Hike is by far my favorite event.
I'll pick my favorite kid.
Everybody knows who your favorite kid is.
Not live. So when is that?
Let's talk about that.
That is August 22nd through 24th.
Okay. That's an awesome event.
Yeah. So back to your original question. Love the Adirondacks, love the Finger Lakes. I mean, Ithaca's so cool. I mean, that's why New York is so great. I mean, there's so many really cool spots.
Yeah. We got to get down to Ithaca more often.
I know.
Watkins Glen.
For sure. That is a beautiful, beautiful park that we need to get to. Okay, so let's talk about restaurants. Our food is so fantastic here. Give a couple of shout outs to good restaurants that you like to eat at.
Crust is amazing. Love them for lunch. It's very funny because I'm like, ooh, I want Riggy's tonight. Love Bella Regina Riggy's. Grande's in Holland Patton. Love their Riggy's.
Boyfriend's in Rome.
Yes.
Teddy's. I mean, I know they get a lot of love.
I haven't been to Teddy's.
No?
Yeah.
I think they won like the Riggy Fest like 2 or 3 years in a row.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm going to change my request for.
I don't think we've never had them.
No.
Full disclosure. So I don't know.
It's hard because there's this misconception that Rome is so far away that we never head out that way for dinner. It's just we need to do a better job of that.
What's always funny to me, and this may need to be cut because this could be an unpopular opinion, but it was so interesting to me, like the Utica Rome thing, where it's like, I'm like, yeah, they're like right there, and people are like, no, this Utica is here and Rome is here, and never the two shall meet.
We're definitely not cutting that. It's so funny. We talk a lot about how the area is big but not too big, small but not too small. And then we were talking before we went on air about how, here in Herkimer County, people are like, oh, that's, down in the valley. Like people from Utica, Rome can agree on one thing. They don't come to Herkimer County.
They don't come to the valley.
It's so funny. It's right here.
I know.
It is wild how in this little tiny spot we have these misconceptions about areas and neighborhoods.
Yeah, so much so.
All right, Central New York event or festival that you never miss.
I love Taste of Syracuse.
We talked about that, I think.
When does that take place?
Oh, I don't honestly know what the date is. And honestly, there's a Syracuse Arts and Crafts Festival is amazing too.
Perfect. All right, one word to describe life in Central New York.
Amazing.
What keeps you rooted here?
A lot of things. I think, because we have the Four Seasons, because I feel like this location is so accessible to other things. You can go to Toronto, to New York, to Boston. I mean, you can go to a lot of places, but I think just within New York State, we have a phenomenal state park system. There's so many different areas within the state that are just accessible and easy, and it's a great place to live. And I hate the heat, so I'm okay with the cooler weather.
Yeah, you're loving this weather. So again, May 17th is the event at Delta Lake. People can connect with you where?
Connect on social, which we're at Cystic Fibrosis Foundation Central New York on Facebook and Instagram, and then cff.org/Central New York, and you can find a listing of our events and connect with us that way too.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to double down on just sharing. Right?
Yes,
is part of the awareness. So you should volunteer, but even if you don't, like you could share this with your audience. There might be someone in there that will volunteer and it can change someone's life. So
100%. And one of the interesting things to me is that for such a rare disease, when I started talking to people and telling them where I worked, so many people know someone like, oh, I babysat someone with CF, or, oh, I went to school with someone. It's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation, but, even less so. So, yeah, please share, because you never know who knows someone or who has a connection, and it makes a difference.
Well, you're doing awesome work, and you're obviously passionate about it, and our hope is that you're out of work soon.
I hope so, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Love Living Local. As you know, we do not run ads. Our only mission is to shine a spotlight on amazing people doing amazing things here in our local community. If you'd like to support us with this mission, we have 3 ways you can help. You can share our content on social, subscribe or follow the show on your favorite podcast platform, and you can visit our lovelivinglocals315.com website to stay up to date with everything happening in Central New York.